Here in Kabul, it looks and feels so different. People here are consumed by the war that followed. What happened here was that the plot, the crime of 9/11 was hatched here in Afghanistan because the Taliban was sheltering Al-Qaeda, but it wasn't a plot by Afghans. Now, the Americans overthrew the Taliban very easily then, but after that, they engaged in building democracy, women's rights, human rights. People here in the city and in other big cities have benefited tremendously from that. They really embraced that project. But out in the rural areas where war continued, it was very different, as we discovered when we drove out of Kabul into Wardak province. They've learnt to be patient. Today they're lining the road, waiting to welcome one of their leaders. For 20 years, they've waited for the enemy to give up and go. Now they're feeling stronger than ever. Patience has reaped its reward.
The Taliban today is very stronger.
Here comes the advance party. Many of the young men in the crowd were children or not even born on 9/11. The official Taliban line is that Afghanistan played no role in the attack on the Twin Towers, but they see themselves as the victims of the ensuing global war on terror, and now the victors. We're on the road to Wardak, west of Kabul. Now they're in charge, the Taliban no longer attack passing traffic, and they're free to move wherever and however they choose. We could never have come here a month ago. It would have been much too dangerous because of the possibility of roadside bombs or kidnap. One of the ironies of this situation is now that the Americans have gone and the Taliban are in charge, it's much safer. A sandbagged lookout juts out like an abandoned medieval fort above a graveyard for some of the victims of this war. Every few miles we see a deserted checkpoint where first the Americans and then the Afghan National Army tried and failed to exert control. Most people here are poor farmers. Only a quarter can read and write. We saw little girls, but no women outside. The Western Project for Women's Rights never reached here, even though it's only 40 miles from Kabul. At Al-Asang village, we meet Akhtar Gul and his family. The Taliban was strong in this area. Several young men, including 2 of his sons, were fighters. That's why his house was raided and blown up by a squad of American and Afghan special forces back in 2018. He still hasn't rebuilt it all. The Taliban son escaped, while the old man and several other relatives were imprisoned for 13 days. His brother was killed in the night raid. The family have kept the evidence of what blew up their house. Night raids in villages like this did not win Afghan hearts and minds. This is the story of just one Afghan family, but there are hundreds of thousands like this. Yes, they had a son in the Taliban, and for that reason their family home was raided and partially destroyed. That's why they're happy to see the back of the Americans, and they welcome Taliban rule and what they hope will be an end to war. All this happened because the Taliban harboured Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda carried out the 9/11 attacks. But that's lost on the people of Al-Asang.
افغانستان د امریکایانو موږ څه خبره موږ تاسو خلاص یو موږ خلاص عوام خلک وانډي ولا امریکایان خلاص چار وسره وسره افغانستان جوړ خیا جوړ کو افغانستان جوړول لپاره او کله رنګول لپاره ورول وسینې چې جوړ کړه بوګرون سره کم کو میدان وی سره کم کو نو تاسو سپیر دون تکینه ولا افغانستان خلک ورک شو تابو شو دا
Spoils of war, an old Soviet machine gun purloined from an Afghan army base, a reward for jihad.
نو موږ هر کم ته د اسلام د پاته په دوه خاطر باندې دانګلی شي د موږ ملک اشغال و نو موږ نه غوښتل چې د خلکو ته مستعمره غلاندې کار وکړو یا د موږ ملک اشغال موږ ته د ضمیر د اجازه نه راکوله چې موږ د کور باندې قرار کینو اما د موږ په ملک د 42 ملکونه دلته منډه را منډه وهي.
Sabawoon took a police car too, on which he's displayed a picture of his brother, who was killed fighting in another province. He walks uphill, past the place where the helicopters landed during the raid, towards the mountains where he hid from the Americans, to the graveyard where his brother is buried. You might weep for lives lost in both dusty villages and gleaming towers, for the whole sorry mess of it, for 20 years of misunderstanding piled upon revenge. For those Afghans who fought America's doomed project and those who embraced it, and for the desolation that now passes for peace.